The train's wheels shrieked against iron rails as Gideon James hauled himself up the side of the mail car, his leather gloves gripping the metal ladder while wind tore at his hat. Inside the dimly lit compartment, wedged between canvas sacks marked with postal seals and wooden crates stamped with shipping labels, a woman pressed herself into the shadows, her breath coming in shallow gasps that fogged the cold October air of 1882. Her dark traveling dress was torn at the hem. Her chestnut hair had escaped its pins to fall wild around her shoulders, and her green eyes held the look of a cornered animal when the door slid open and Gideon stepped inside, his weathered face illuminated by the lantern swinging overhead. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rhythmic clatter of the train speeding through the Texas panhandle toward Tascosa. "Please do not tell anyone I am here." Gideon closed the door behind him and studied her for a long moment, taking in the expensive fabric of her dress despite its current state, the delicate hands that trembled as she clutched a small carpet bag to her chest, and the purple bruise blooming along her left cheekbone. He had been riding in the passenger car when he noticed the conductor acting strangely, had seen the telegraph operator bored at the last station with a rolled paper and urgent whispers, and his instincts told him something was wrong. Those same instincts that had kept him alive through years of riding the cattle trails and dealing with rustlers now told him this woman was running from something far worse than the law. "Whatever you are fleeing," he said quietly, moving slowly so as not to startle her, "you just found safety." The relief that flooded her features nearly broke his heart. She sagged against the mail sacks, her whole body shaking with the release of tension she must have been holding for hours, perhaps days. Gideon shrugged off his coat despite the chill and draped it over her shoulders, the heavy canvas and sheepskin lining swallowing her small frame. "My name is Gideon James," he said, crouching down to her level so he would not loom over her. "I work the Circle T ranch outside Tascosa. Been riding these rails back from Fort Worth where I sold a herd. Now, you do not have to tell me your story if you are not ready, but I need to know one thing. Are you in danger right now on this train?" She looked up at him, searching his face as if trying to determine whether she could trust this stranger with the sun-weathered skin and honest gray eyes. Finally, she nodded. "My name is Lily Carter. And yes, there are men looking for me. They might be on this train already." "Then we need to move you somewhere safer before we reach the next station," Gideon said, his mind already working through the options. "The conductor will check this car eventually, and if someone wired ahead, there will be people waiting at every stop between here and Tascosa." "I have nowhere to go," Lily said, and the despair in her voice cut through him like a knife. "I left everything behind in Dallas. My uncle, he wanted to force me into a marriage with a business associate, a man named Vernon Blackthorne who owns half the cattle operations in North Texas. When I refused, when I tried to stand up for myself, Vernon struck me. He said I would learn obedience soon enough." Her hand drifted to the bruise on her face. "That night, I heard them planning. They were going to have me declared mentally incompetent, so my uncle could control my inheritance from my father and force me into the marriage regardless of my wishes. I had to run." Gideon felt anger burning in his chest, hot and fierce. He had seen too much cruelty in his 32 years, but there was something particularly vile about men who used the law and their power to trap women who had no recourse. "Vernon Blackthorne," he said slowly. "I have heard of him. He has been trying to buy up land around Tascosa too, pushing out smaller ranchers. He is not a good man. He has influence everywhere," Lily said hopelessly. "Resources, money, connections. I thought if I could just get far enough away, maybe to New Mexico territory or even California, I could disappear. Start over with what little I managed to take. How old are you? Gideon asked gently. 22, she replied. Old enough that I should have some say in my own life, but apparently that counts for nothing when there are men with money and power involved. Gideon nodded, thinking hard. The train would reach the next station, a small depot called Adobe Walls, in less than an hour. If Blackthorn had men waiting there, Lily would be caught before she made it another 50 miles. But Gideon knew this country, knew it in his bones from years of driving cattle across these plains and sleeping under these stars. There might be another way. Can you ride? He asked. Lily blinked at him. Ride? A horse? Can you sit a horse and hold on? I have ridden before, but not extensively. Certainly not like I imagine you mean. It will have to do. Gideon stood and moved to the door, peering out the narrow window at the landscape rushing past. They were approaching a section where the tracks ran close to the Canadian river breaks, where arroyos and rough country would provide cover. In about 15 minutes, this train is going to slow down to navigate a curve. When it does, we are going to jump. Jump! Lily's eyes went wide. From a moving train, from a slow-moving train, Gideon corrected. I have done it before. It is not pleasant, but it is survivable if you do it right, and I have horses stashed not 2 miles from where we will land. I was planning to ride cross-country to the ranch anyway, save myself the extra miles into Tascosa and then back out. Now those horses are going to save us both. You would do this for me? Lily asked, searching his face again with those remarkable green eyes. You do not even know me. I know enough, Gideon said firmly. I know you are running from a man who thinks he can buy and force his way into anything he wants. I know you are brave enough to climb into a mail car and ride the rails alone rather than accept that fate. That is all I need to know. Besides, he added with a slight smile, I have never much cared for men like Vernon Blackthorn. Seems to me helping you is both the right thing to do and satisfying in its own way. For the first time since he had found her, Lily smiled just a little. It transformed her face, making her truly beautiful despite the fear and exhaustion written in every line of her body. Thank you, she whispered. I do not know how I will ever repay you. Let us focus on getting you off this train alive first, Gideon said. Then we can worry about the rest. He spent the next few minutes preparing, checking the straps on his saddlebags and making sure everything was secure. He explained to Lily how they would jump, how she needed to roll when she hit the ground to distribute the impact, how he would go first and be there to help her. She listened with complete focus, clearly terrified but determined not to let that terror control her. When Gideon felt the train begin to slow, its wheels grinding as it approached the curve, he slid the door open wider and cold wind rushed in, carrying the scent of sage and dry grass. The sun was lowering toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Below, the rocky ground covered with sparse vegetation rushed past at what still looked like an alarming speed. Ready? Gideon asked, positioning himself at the door. Lily clutched his coat tighter around her shoulders and nodded, her jaw set with determination. Gideon jumped first, hitting the ground and rolling as he had done half a dozen times in his youth when he and the other ranch hands had thought themselves invincible. The impact jarred through his bones, but nothing broke, nothing tore. He came up on his feet and turned back to see Lily standing at the open door, her face pale but resolved. Now, he shouted. Jump now. She jumped, her skirts billowing around her, and Gideon's heart seized in his chest as she fell. He ran forward, managed to catch her partially, cushioning her fall even as they both went down in a tangle of limbs and fabric. The train continued on without them, its whistle blowing mournfully as it disappeared around the curve. Are you hurt? Gideon asked urgently, helping Lily sit up. She took inventory of herself, moving her arms and legs experimentally. "I think I am intact, bruised certainly, but nothing broken." "Then we need to move. The horses are this way." He helped her to her feet and they set off across the rough terrain, moving as quickly as Lily could manage in her impractical traveling dress and button-up boots. Gideon kept his hand on her elbow, steadying her over the uneven ground. True to his word, they reached a small arroyo within 20 minutes where two horses stood hobbled and waiting, a black gelding and a sorrel mare, both with Gideon's brand on their flanks. "You left them here?" Lily asked, amazed. "Paid a ranch hand to bring them out yesterday," Gideon explained. "I send a telegram ahead whenever I am coming back through. Have the horses waiting so I can avoid spending extra days traveling. Seems my paranoid planning just paid off in ways I never expected." He unhobbled the horses and helped Lily mount the mare, adjusting the stirrups as best he could for her shorter legs. She settled into the saddle with reasonable competence, gathering the reins properly, and Gideon felt a flicker of relief. At least she had not lied about being able to ride. "We will head west and then north," he said, swinging up onto the black gelding with easy grace. "Keep off the main trails. There is a line shack about 15 miles from here where we can spend the night. It is not much, but it will be warm and safe. Tomorrow we will figure out what comes next." They rode as the sun sank lower, casting long shadows across the high plains. Lily held on with grim determination, clearly not accustomed to this kind of riding but refusing to complain. Gideon kept them at a steady pace, not so fast that it would exhaust the horses or Lily, but fast enough to put distance between them and any pursuit. The temperature dropped as darkness fell, as it always did in October on the plains. Gideon could see Lily shivering despite his coat wrapped around her, and he pushed the pace a little faster. When the line shack finally appeared, a dark square against the starlit horizon, he felt profound relief. The shack was exactly as rustic as advertised. A single room with a potbelly stove, a narrow cot, a table with 2 chairs, and shelves stocked with basic supplies. Gideon got a fire going in the stove while Lily sank onto one of the chairs, her legs clearly shaking from the unaccustomed exertion. "There should be coffee and some jerky and hardtack," Gideon said, moving to check the shelves. "Not exactly a feast, but it will keep us going." "It sounds wonderful," Lily said, and she meant it. She had not eaten since the night before, had been too afraid to venture into the dining car or draw any attention to herself. Gideon put coffee on to boil and laid out the simple food. As they ate in the warmth of the growing fire, some of the tension began to drain from Lily's shoulders. She looked around the sparse cabin with something like wonder. "I have never been anywhere like this," she said quietly. "I grew up in Dallas, in a big house with servants and calling cards and dinner parties. My father was a banker and investor. He died 2 years ago, left everything to me since my mother passed when I was a child. My uncle Marcus was supposed to be my guardian and trustee until I turned 25, but he saw it as his opportunity instead. To sell you to the highest bidder," Gideon said, his voice hard. "Essentially, yes. Vernon Blackthorne offered a business partnership and marriage in one package. My uncle would get access to Blackthorne's cattle operations and shipping contracts, and Blackthorne would get my inheritance and a respectable wife to parade around. What I wanted never entered into their considerations. You said your father was a banker. Did he teach you about his business?" Lily nodded, her eyes distant with memory. "He did, actually. He used to say that I had a better head for numbers than most of the men he employed. He taught me about investments, about how to read contracts and assess risks. I think he knew my uncle was not to be trusted, was trying to prepare me, but he died so suddenly. A heart attack. There was no time for him to change his will or make other arrangements. "So you are not just an heiress," Gideon said thoughtfully. "You actually understand business and money. For all the good it does me when I have no legal standing and every man with power in Dallas wants to see me married off to Vernon Blackthorne." They fell silent for a while, drinking the strong black coffee and listening to the wind howl outside the shack. Finally, Gideon spoke. "You need a plan beyond just running. Men like Blackthorne do not give up easily, especially when there is money involved. He will search for you, use all those connections and resources you mentioned." "I know," Lily said miserably. "But what can I do? I have no legal recourse, no way to fight him in court. Even if I could find a lawyer brave enough to take my case, it would take years and cost more than I can access." "There might be another way," Gideon said slowly, an idea forming. "It is not perfect and it requires you to trust me even more than you already have, but it could work." "What do you mean, marry me?" Lily stared at him, coffee cup frozen halfway to her lips. "What?" "Marry me," Gideon repeated, warming to the idea even as it shocked him to hear himself saying it. "If you are married to someone else, Blackthorne has no claim. Your uncle cannot force you into anything if you are already legally wed. And as your husband, I would have legal standing to protect your interests and your inheritance." "But that is insane," Lily said, though her voice held more wonder than rejection. "We just met. You do not know me, I do not know you. Why would you even suggest such a thing?" Gideon set down his coffee and looked at her directly. "Because I have spent my whole life watching powerful men take whatever they want while decent people suffer. I have seen homesteaders driven off their land, seen widows cheated out of their property, seen men like Blackthorne crush anyone who stands in their way. Maybe I cannot fix all of it, but I can help you, and maybe that counts for something. But a marriage, that is a life commitment. You would be bound to a stranger." "It does not have to be a real marriage," Gideon said, though something in his chest tightened at the words. "We could have an arrangement. Legal papers to protect you, but otherwise you would be free to live your own life. When enough time has passed and Blackthorne gives up, we could dissolve it quietly. Or we could maintain the fiction as long as you needed the protection." Lily looked down at her hands, her brow furrowed in thought. "You would really do that? Give up your own freedom, your chance at a real marriage and family, just to help me?" "I am 32 years old and still unmarried," Gideon said with a slight smile. "Most people have given up on me settling down anyway. I like my life at the ranch, like working with horses and cattle. I am not looking for romance or a wife to manage, but I would like to know I did something that mattered, something good, helping you accomplish that seems like a fair trade." "This is the most extraordinary conversation I have ever had," Lily said, shaking her head in disbelief. "This morning I was hiding in a mail car, terrified I would be dragged back to Dallas. Now I am sitting in a line shack being proposed to by a cowboy I met 3 hours ago." "I know it sounds crazy," Gideon admitted, "but think about it practically. If we ride into Tascosa tomorrow as a married couple, as Mr. and Mrs. Gideon James, no one will question it. Small towns see people marry quickly out here all the time. Women come west as mail-order brides, couples meet and wed within weeks. It will not seem strange. And once you are legally married, Blackthorne cannot touch you. He might be angry, might try to cause problems, but he will have no legal standing to claim you or your inheritance. What about your reputation? If people find out you married a woman to protect her from another marriage, they might think poorly of you. Let them think what they want. I have never much cared for other people's opinions." Lily studied him in the firelight, this strange man who had appeared in her darkest moment like something out of a storybook. He was handsome in a rough, weathered way, with strong features and kind eyes. More than that, he was honest. She could see it in every line of his face, in the straightforward way he spoke. And he was offering her something she had thought impossible, a way out that did not require her to keep running forever. "If I agreed to this," she said carefully, "I would want some things made clear. I would not be some helpless wife dependent on your charity. I have skills, knowledge. I could help with the ranch accounts, with business matters. I would want to contribute, to be useful." "I would never ask you to be helpless," Gideon said. "If you want to help with the ranch, I would welcome it. God knows the bookkeeping is not my strong suit. I can break a horse and brand a calf and mend fence all day, but I hate dealing with the ledgers and accounts. If you wanted to take that over, you would be doing me a favor. And the living arrangements. You mentioned the Circle T Ranch. What would that look like? The foreman has his own cabin, but there is a main ranch house. It is not fancy, but it is solid. 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a parlor, more than enough space for 2 people who need their privacy. You would have your own room, your own space. I would not impose on you in any way that made you uncomfortable." Lily was quiet for a long moment, thinking it through from every angle. It was risky, trusting this man, binding herself legally to a stranger. But staying on the run was impossible, and going back to Dallas meant a lifetime under Vernon Blackthorne's control. This strange offer of a marriage of convenience might be her only real chance at freedom. "All right," she said finally. "Yes, I will marry you." Gideon felt something shift in his chest, something he could not quite name. Relief, certainly, that she had agreed to the plan. But there was something else, too, something warmer and more complicated. He pushed it aside and focused on the practical matters. "We will ride into Tascosa tomorrow and find Judge Morrison. He is a good man, fair. He will marry us without too many questions. Then we will go to the ranch and start building your cover story. You came west from Dallas. We met when I sold cattle in Fort Worth. Married quickly. It is close enough to the truth that it will hold up. What about when Vernon comes looking? Because he will come looking. Then I will deal with him," Gideon said, and there was steel in his voice. "No one is taking you anywhere you do not want to go, not while I am alive to prevent it." They finished their coffee in companionable silence. When it came time to sleep, Gideon insisted Lily take the cot while he made a bedroll on the floor near the stove. She protested, but he would not hear of it, and eventually she gave in, too exhausted to argue further. As Lily drifted off to sleep, warm for the first time in days and feeling the first fragile threads of safety weaving around her, she found herself thinking about the man sleeping on the floor a few feet away. Gideon James, who had asked for nothing but was giving everything. She had never met anyone like him, never imagined such people existed outside of books and stories. Gideon lay awake longer, listening to Lily's breathing even out into sleep. He told himself he had done the practical thing, the right thing. It was just an arrangement, just papers and a legal fiction to protect someone who needed help. There was no reason for his heart to be beating faster, no reason for him to feel like his entire life had just shifted onto a new and unexpected path. They woke with the dawn, cold and stiff, but rested. Gideon got the fire going again and made more coffee, while Lily did her best to make herself presentable. Finger combing her tangled hair and brushing the worst of the dust from her dress. She still looked like she had been through an ordeal, but there was color in her cheeks and determination in her eyes. The ride into Tascosa took most of the morning. The town sat on the Canadian River, a collection of adobe and wooden buildings that served the surrounding ranches and the nearby buffalo hunters, though those were fewer now than in years past. It was rough and practical, a working town without much pretension. Gideon led them straight to a modest house on the edge of town where Judge Morrison lived. The judge was a silver-haired man in his 60s with sharp eyes and a reputation for fairness. He listened to Gideon's request without comment, his gaze moving between the cowboy he had known for years and the young woman in the torn dress and bruised face. "This is sudden, Gideon," the judge said finally. "Sometimes life is sudden," Gideon replied evenly. "Are you willing to marry us or not?" Judge Morrison looked at Lily. "Miss, do you enter into this marriage of your own free will?" "I do," Lily said clearly. "No one is forcing you or coercing you. No one. Mr. James has been nothing but kind and respectful. I want this marriage." The judge studied her a moment longer, then nodded. "All right then. Let me get my Bible." The ceremony was brief and simple. They stood in the judge's parlor with his housekeeper as witness, and the judge spoke the traditional words while Gideon and Lily repeated their vows. When Gideon produced a plain gold band, something he had bought from a trading post years ago for reasons he could not quite remember, and slipped it onto Lily's finger, her eyes widened with surprise. "I now pronounce you man and wife," Judge Morrison said. "Mr. James, you may kiss your bride." Gideon hesitated, not wanting to presume, but Lily rose on her toes and pressed a chaste kiss to his lips, brief and warm. When she pulled back, there was a faint blush on her cheeks. They signed the marriage certificate. The judge filed it officially. And just like that, Lily Carter became Lily James. As they walked out of the judge's house into the bright October sunlight, Lily looked down at the ring on her finger with an expression of wonder and disbelief. "Are you all right?" Gideon asked quietly. "I am married," she said, as if testing the words. "I am actually married. Yesterday I was running for my life, and today I am a married woman with a new name." Having second thoughts, "No," she said quickly, looking up at him. "No, not at all. It is just overwhelming, but in a good way, I think. For the first time since my father died, I feel like I might actually have a future that belongs to me." "Then let us go see your new home," Gideon said with a smile. The Circle T Ranch lay about 8 miles northwest of Tascosa, sprawling across good grazing land with water access from the Canadian River. The main house was adobe with a wooden frame addition, practical and sturdy. Corrals and outbuildings dotted the property, and Gideon pointed them out as they rode in, explaining the operation to Lily. "We run about 800 head of cattle, mostly longhorns, but I have been trying to breed in some Herefords for better beef quality. Got 15 horses, some for working, some for selling. I have 2 permanent ranch hands, Louis and Tom, and we hire on extra help during roundup and branding season. The foreman, Jack, lives in that cabin over there with his wife, Maria." As if summoned by the mention of their names, a couple emerged from the cabin. Jack was a lean man in his 40s with a weather-beaten face, and Maria was a small, dark-haired woman with a warm smile. Both stopped short when they saw Gideon had brought someone home. "Jack, Maria, I want you to meet my wife, Lily," Gideon said, and the casual words felt strange and right all at once. "We married this morning in Tascosa." Maria's eyes went wide with delight, and she hurried over with a rapid stream of Spanish and English mixed together, congratulating them and scolding Gideon for not giving them warning so she could have prepared a proper welcome. Jack just grinned and shook Gideon's hand, clearly pleased. "Mrs. James, welcome to Circle T," Jack said to Lily. "This place has needed a woman's touch for a long time. Gideon is a good rancher but a terrible housekeeper." Lily laughed, some of her nervousness easing at their genuine warmth. "Please call me Lily, and I appreciate the welcome. I hope I can be useful here." "Useful," Maria said, linking her arm through Lily's. "Come, let me show you the house. Gideon, you take care of the horses. I am stealing your bride." Gideon watched as Maria swept Lily toward the ranch house, chattering about everything that needed attention. Jack came to stand beside him, his expression more serious now. "Boss, I have known you a long time," Jack said quietly. "That woman has the look of someone running from trouble. You want to tell me what is really going on?" "She needed help," Gideon said simply. "I gave it. That is all you need to know. And the marriage, that is for real. It is legal if that is what you are asking. Beyond that, it is between me and Lily." Jack nodded slowly. "All right, but if trouble comes looking for her, it will find all of us. I hope you are ready for that." "I am," Gideon said firmly. "And I hope it does not come to that, but if it does, I will handle it." Inside the house, Maria was giving Lily the full tour, pointing out the kitchen with its wood-burning stove and pump sink, the parlor with its well-worn furniture, the bedrooms with their simple furnishings. The house was clean but sparse, clearly the domain of a man who spent most of his time outdoors. "It needs much work," Maria said apologetically. "Curtains, rugs, perhaps some paint, but it is a good house, solid. Gideon built the addition himself 3 years ago." "It is wonderful," Lily said honestly. Compared to the mansion in Dallas with its ornate furnishings and formal rooms, this house was simple to the point of austerity. But it felt real, lived in, and somehow safer than any place she had been in years. "I will be very happy here." "I am so glad Gideon found someone," Maria said warmly. "He is a good man, but lonely, I think. He spends too much time with the cattle and not enough with people. You will be good for him." Lily did not know how to explain that this was not a love match, that it was a practical arrangement. So she just smiled and let Maria believe what she wanted to believe. That first evening at the ranch was surreal. Gideon showed Lily to the bedroom she would use, the largest of the three with a decent bed and a dresser and a window that looked out over the corrals. He took the room across the hall for himself, maintaining the proprieties even though they were married. They ate dinner in the kitchen, simple fare that Gideon cooked with surprising competence, steak and beans and fresh bread that Maria had left for them. They talked about practical matters, about the ranch and the rhythms of life here, about what Lily might need in terms of clothing and supplies. "We can go into Tascosa tomorrow," Gideon said. "Get you some proper clothes for ranch life, dresses that can take hard wear, maybe some riding clothes if you want to learn to ride better. Whatever you need." "I have some money," Lily said. "Not much, but I managed to take some cash before I left Dallas. I can pay for my own things." "You are my wife now," Gideon said. "That means what is mine is yours. You do not need to spend your own money on necessities." "But this is not a real marriage," Lily said carefully. "We agreed it was an arrangement. I do not want to take advantage of your generosity more than I already have." Gideon set down his fork and looked at her seriously. "Lily, to the rest of the world, this is a real marriage, legal and binding. That means I am responsible for your welfare and you have every right to the resources of this ranch. I do not want you feeling like you are taking advantage or being a burden. You are not. You are my wife, and that means something, even if we came to it in an unusual way." Lily felt something tighten in her throat. She had been fighting alone for so long, had felt like a burden to everyone, that hearing someone claim responsibility for her welfare with such simple conviction was overwhelming. "Thank you," she said softly. "You cannot know what it means to me, all of this. Your kindness, your protection. I will find ways to repay you, I promise. Just help me with those account books," Gideon said with a smile. "That will be payment enough." They fell into a routine surprisingly quickly over the following days. Lily did go into Tascosa with Gideon, where they bought practical clothing and supplies. The townspeople they encountered were curious about Gideon's sudden marriage, but not suspicious. Women coming west to marry was common enough that no one questioned it deeply, especially when they saw how Gideon treated Lily with careful respect, and she responded with genuine warmth. At the ranch, Lily threw herself into making herself useful. She took over the kitchen, discovering she actually enjoyed cooking when it was not for formal dinner parties, but for hungry ranch hands who appreciated every meal. She tackled the account books with enthusiasm, quickly identifying places where expenses could be trimmed and income increased. She organized the household, adding the small touches Maria had mentioned, curtains and rugs and better lighting. But more than that, she began to learn the ranch itself. She spent time in the corrals watching Gideon work with the horses, fascinated by his patience and skill. She learned the names of all the cattle hands and their families. She walked the property with Jack, learning about the land and the water sources and the challenges of ranching in this harsh country. Gideon watched Lily blossom from the terrified woman he had found in the mail car into something entirely different. She was smart and capable, throwing herself into ranch life with determination. She learned to ride properly, spending hours in the saddle until she could keep up with him on his rounds. She learned to rope and brand, to mend tack and tend sick animals. She had a good head for business, too, her father's training serving her well as she reorganized the ranch finances. But beyond her usefulness, Gideon found himself drawn to Lily in ways he had not anticipated. He liked her laugh, bright and genuine when something amused her. He liked her fierce independence, the way she insisted on pulling her weight and learning new skills. He liked the way she looked in the morning with her hair down, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and the account books spread before her. He liked talking to her in the evenings, sharing the events of the day and discussing plans for the ranch. Gideon realized with growing alarm, falling in love with his wife. Lily was experiencing her own complicated feelings. She had entered this marriage as a practical arrangement, grateful for the protection and the chance at a new life. But living with Gideon, working beside him day after day, she found herself noticing things. The way his face lit up when he smiled, the gentle patience he showed with the animals, the respect he gave her, treating her as an equal partner rather than a subordinate or an ornament. The way he listened when she spoke, really listened, as if her thoughts and opinions mattered. She caught herself watching him more often, admiring the easy grace with which he moved, the strength in his hands, the kindness in his eyes. She found herself lingering in conversations, reluctant for the day to end and them to retreat to their separate rooms. She wondered what it would be like if this were a real marriage, if she had the right to touch him freely, to share his bed, to call him hers in truth, and not just in legal fiction. It terrified her, these feelings. She had fled one marriage she did not want only to find herself wishing for something real in the marriage she had thought would be temporary. What if Gideon did not feel the same? What if she ruined this fragile safety by wanting more than they had agreed upon? 3 weeks after their wedding, the trouble Gideon had been expecting finally arrived. A telegram came to the ranch, delivered by a rider from town. It was addressed to Gideon James and was signed by Vernon Blackthorne. "I know you have her," the telegram read. "I will be in Tascosa within the week to collect my property. If you do not hand her over peacefully, I will bring legal force to bear. She belongs to me." Gideon read the telegram twice, his jaw tightening with each word. Lily, seeing his expression, came to his side immediately. "What is it?" "What is wrong?" He handed her the telegram without a word. She read it, her face going pale, all the color that had slowly returned over the past weeks draining away. "He found me," she whispered. "I knew he would, but I had hoped maybe out here he might give up." "Men like that never give up," Gideon said grimly. But he is wrong about one thing: you do not belong to him. You never did, and you certainly do not now. You are Lily James, my legal wife. He has no claim on you whatsoever. He has lawyers' influence. He could make life very difficult. Let him try. Gideon took the telegram from her shaking hands and crumpled it. We will face this together. He can bluster and threaten all he wants, but the law is clear. You are married to me. That ends his ability to force you into anything. You do not know Vernon, Lily said, fear making her voice tight. He does not accept defeat. He will find a way to hurt you for interfering with his plans. Then we will be ready. Gideon put his hands on her shoulders, making her look at him. Lily, listen to me. I am not going to let anything happen to you. We will go into town, speak to Judge Morrison, maybe the sheriff, make sure everyone understands the situation. Blackthorn can come with all the lawyers in Texas, and it will not change the facts. Over the next few days, Gideon made good on his promise. They went into Tascosa and met with Judge Morrison, explaining the full situation. The judge, having suspected something was unusual about the hasty marriage, listened gravely. So Vernon Blackthorn thinks he can come to my town and claim a married woman as his property. Judge Morrison said, his voice hard. I think Mr. Blackthorn is going to be disappointed. I will make certain the marriage certificate is properly filed and recorded everywhere that matters. I will also have a word with Sheriff Carlson. Sheriff Ben Carlson was a no-nonsense lawman who had kept the peace in Tascosa through buffalo hunter riots and range wars. When Judge Morrison brought him into the conversation, he listened to Lily's story with growing anger. I do not much care for men who think they can buy and bully their way through life, the sheriff said. If Blackthorn comes to my town and causes trouble, he will find out that his money and connections do not mean much on the Texas panhandle. You have my word, Mrs. James, that no one is taking you anywhere against your will. The support from the judge and sheriff bolstered Lily's courage, but she still felt the dread of Vernon's impending arrival like a weight on her chest. She knew he would not accept the marriage easily, would look for any angle to challenge or undermine it. Vernon Blackthorn arrived in Tascosa 6 days after the telegram, traveling in style with 2 lawyers and 4 hired men who looked more like enforcers than cowboys. He took rooms at the best hotel in town and immediately began making inquiries about Gideon James and his sudden bride. Word reached the ranch quickly. Jack rode in from town with the news, his expression serious. Blackthorn is here, boss, making a lot of noise, throwing money around. Says he is going to retrieve his fiancée who was kidnapped and married under duress. We expected this, Gideon said calmly, though his hand tightened on the rope he was coiling. Let him make his noise. The law is on our side. He is asking for a meeting. Says he will come to the ranch tomorrow morning with his lawyers to discuss the situation. Gideon exchanged a look with Lily, who had gone very still. Fine, he said. Let him come. We will settle this face to face. That night Lily barely slept. She lay in her bed staring at the ceiling, remembering the last time she had seen Vernon, the cold anger in his eyes when she had dared to refuse him, the casual violence of that slap. Tomorrow she would face him again, but this time she would not be alone. This time she had Gideon standing beside her. The thought sent a wave of warmth through her, followed by a pang of longing so sharp it hurt. Somewhere in the past weeks, her gratitude and respect for Gideon had transformed into something deeper, something that made her heart race when he smiled at her, and her skin warm when he accidentally brushed against her. She loved him, she realized. She had fallen completely in love with the quiet, honorable cowboy who had saved her without asking for anything in return. But he had married her as a favor, as an arrangement. He was kind and respectful, treated her well, but he had never indicated he wanted anything more than the agreement they had made. How could she tell him how she felt without risking everything they had built across the hall? Gideon was having similar sleepless thoughts. Knowing Vernon Blackthorne would be here tomorrow, would see Lily and perhaps upset her, made protective instincts flare hot and fierce in his chest. But underneath, that was the growing realization that his feelings for Lily had gone far beyond the practical arrangement they had agreed upon. He had fallen in love with his wife, not the legal fiction, but the real woman. Her courage, her intelligence, her determination to build a life here despite everything she had fled. The way she fit into his world as if she had always been meant to be part of it. The way his house had become a home with her in it. The way his days had more meaning knowing he would see her at breakfast and dinner, and in all the small moments in between. But she had agreed to a marriage of convenience, a protection on paper. She had never indicated she wanted more. How could he tell her his feelings had changed without making her feel trapped or obligated? Morning came cold and clear, the November sun bright, but offering little warmth. Gideon and Lily stood together on the porch of the ranch house, presenting a united front, when Vernon Blackthorne's expensive carriage rolled up the road with 2 riders flanking it. Vernon Blackthorne was a large man, tall and broad with the kind of beef that came from rich food and little physical labor. He wore expensive clothes and carried himself with the arrogance of someone accustomed to getting his way. His 2 lawyers, thin men in dark suits, followed him like shadows as he climbed down from the carriage. The 4 hired men stayed mounted, their hands resting near their guns in a not-so-subtle show of force. Gideon noticed and felt his own stance shift, his body moving slightly in front of Lily's. "Lillian," Vernon said, his voice smooth and cold, "I have been very worried about you. Your uncle has been frantic, running away like that, marrying some cowboy in the middle of nowhere. Clearly, you have not been well." "I am perfectly well," Lily said, her voice stronger than she felt. "And my name is Lily James now. I am no longer under my uncle's authority or yours." Vernon's eyes narrowed, his gaze moving to Gideon. "You must be the opportunist who took advantage of a confused young woman to get his hands on her inheritance. I will give you one chance to dissolve this sham of a marriage quietly. If you do, I am prepared to offer compensation for your trouble. If you refuse, my lawyers will destroy you in court." "There is nothing to dissolve," Gideon said evenly. "Lily and I were married legally by Judge Morrison. The marriage is valid and binding. She is my wife and she stays with me." "She was promised to me," Vernon said, his smooth facade cracking to show the anger beneath. "Her uncle gave his consent to our union. You have interfered with a legal arrangement." "There was no legal arrangement," one of Vernon's lawyers interjected, stepping forward. "Mr. Blackthorne and Miss Carter, as she was then, had an understanding. Her uncle, as her legal guardian, consented to the match. This subsequent marriage, entered into without the guardian's permission, could be challenged as invalid." "Lily was 22 years old when we married," Gideon countered. "Past the age of majority in Texas. She did not need her guardian's permission. And any understanding between her and Mr. Blackthorne was exactly that, an understanding, not a legal contract." "You know nothing about the law," the lawyer sneered. "Maybe not," Gideon said. "But Judge Morrison does, and he was satisfied the marriage was legal. So was Sheriff Carlson." Vernon's face darkened at the mention of local law enforcement. "I do not care what some country judge and sheriff think. I have connections in Austin and Washington. I can make your life very difficult, Mr. James." "You can certainly try," Gideon said, his voice hard as iron. "But it will not change the facts. Lily is my wife. She has made her choice and it was not you. I suggest you accept that and go back to Dallas." Vernon turned his attention back to Lily, and his expression shifted, becoming almost pleading. "Lillian, be reasonable. You belong in Dallas, in society, not out here in this wilderness. Come back with me. We can forget this ever happened, start fresh. I can give you everything: comfort, security, respect." "Everything except freedom," Lily said quietly. "Everything except the right to choose my own life." "You hit me, Vernon, when I tried to say no. You and my uncle conspired to have me declared incompetent so you could control my inheritance. You never wanted a wife. You wanted an asset you could manage and manipulate. I will never go back to that." Vernon's mask slipped completely, fury contorting his features. "You ungrateful little fool. Do you think this cowboy wants you for anything other than your money? You think he cares about you? He married you for the same reason I wanted to, the inheritance. At least I had the decency to offer you a place in proper society." "You are wrong," Lily said, her voice ringing with conviction. "Gideon married me to protect me, not to exploit me. He has asked for nothing, has treated me with more respect and kindness than you or my uncle ever showed. Whatever his reasons, they are better than yours ever were." "This is not over," Vernon snarled. "I will file suit in Dallas, have this marriage annulled on the grounds of fraud and coercion. I will tie up your inheritance in legal battles for years. You will spend everything fighting me in court and have nothing left. And you," he turned to Gideon, "I will destroy you. I will buy up the land around your ranch, cut off your water access, drive you into bankruptcy. By the time I am done, you will wish you had never heard the name Lily Carter." "Her name is Lily James," Gideon said, his voice dangerously quiet. "And I think you need to leave my property now before I have you removed." Vernon looked at the four men who had ridden with him, clearly considering whether to escalate the situation into violence. But Gideon's ranch hands had appeared from the corrals and outbuildings, a dozen men standing ready, and the odds were no longer in Vernon's favor. With a final furious glare, Vernon stormed back to his carriage. "You have not heard the last of this," he shouted as the carriage pulled away. "I will see you both ruined." They watched the carriage disappear down the road in a cloud of dust. Lily was shaking, Gideon realized, trembling like a leaf in the wind despite her brave words. Without thinking, he pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "You were amazing," he murmured against her hair. "So strong. I am proud of you." Lily clung to him, breathing in the scent of leather and horses and something uniquely Gideon. She felt safe here, wrapped in his arms, and she never wanted to leave. "He is going to do exactly what he threatened," she said. "He will make our lives hell." "Let him try," Gideon said fiercely. "We will face whatever comes together. He does not scare me, Lily. Bullies like that are all bluster. He might have money and lawyers, but we have the law on our side and the truth. That counts for more than he thinks." Over the following weeks, Vernon made good on some of his threats. Legal papers arrived challenging the validity of the marriage, demanding that Lily return to Dallas to face questions about her mental competency, attempting to freeze her inheritance. Each new threat was met by Judge Morrison, and a lawyer he knew in Amarillo, a sharp woman named Catherine Wells who specialized in property law and took immense pleasure in thwarting men like Vernon Blackthorne. Catherine came to the ranch to meet with Lily, and the two women formed an instant bond. "He does not have a case," Catherine said after reviewing all the documents. "The marriage is completely legal. You were of age, of sound mind, and entered into it freely. As for your inheritance, your fathers will left it to you, not your uncle. Your uncle's role as trustee is administrative, not controlling. We can fight this and we can win, but it will take time and money." "I have money," Lily said. "I will spend whatever it takes to be free of Vernon and my uncle." "Then we will fight," Catherine said with a fierce smile. The legal battle stretched into winter, a war of paperwork and court filings. But something else was happening at the ranch during those cold months, something that had nothing to do with lawyers and everything to do with two people living under the same roof, working side by side, slowly realizing that the arrangement they had made was becoming something real. It was in small moments that the shift happened. Gideon teaching Lily to shoot, standing behind her with his arms around hers to steady the rifle, both of them acutely aware of every point of contact. Lily mending Gideon's shirt, her fingers careful on the fabric while he watched her with an expression that made her heart race. Evenings spent sitting by the fire, talking about everything and nothing, finding they never ran out of things to say. One snowy evening in late December, Lily was working on the account books when Gideon came in from checking on the stock, covered in snow and shivering despite his heavy coat. She jumped up immediately, helping him out of his frozen coat, scolding him for staying out too long in the cold. "I am fine," he protested, but he was smiling at her fussing. "You are half frozen," she countered, steering him toward the fire. "Sit down, I will make coffee." As she moved around the kitchen, Gideon watched her with an expression of such longing that Jack, who had come in behind him, noticed and grinned. "You have got it bad, boss," Jack said quietly. "What?" Gideon tore his gaze away from Lily. "You are in love with your wife." Not exactly a secret anymore, at least not to anyone with eyes. "The question is, have you told her?" "It was supposed to be an arrangement," Gideon said quietly. "I married her to protect her, not to trap her in a real marriage she might not want." "Maybe you should ask her what she wants instead of deciding for her," Jack suggested. "Seems to me she looks at you the same way you look at her, but someone has to be brave enough to say it out loud." Jack left, heading to his own cabin, and Gideon sat by the fire thinking about his words. Could Jack be right? Did Lily feel something more than gratitude and partnership? Lily brought him coffee and sat down in the chair beside his, her own cup cradled in her hands. "The snow is getting deep," she observed. "We might be snowed in for a few days if this keeps up." "Probably," Gideon agreed. "Good thing we stocked supplies. We will be fine." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the fire. Then Lily said, "I received a letter from Catherine today. She thinks the court is going to rule in our favor, dismiss Vernon's challenges. It could all be over by spring." "That is wonderful news," Gideon said, and meant it. But there was also something heavy in his chest, a realization that once the legal threat was gone, Lily would be free. Free to leave if she wanted, free to dissolve their marriage of convenience and go live her own life somewhere else. The thought of her leaving, of the ranch without her presence, was suddenly unbearable. "Gideon," Lily said, setting down her coffee cup, "can I ask you something? Anything?" "When we married, we agreed it was an arrangement, a practical solution to my problem. You said it did not have to be a real marriage, that I would be free to leave when the time was right." She took a breath, gathering her courage. "What if I do not want to leave? What if I want this to be real?" Gideon's heart stopped, then started beating so hard he thought it might burst from his chest. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that somewhere along the way, this stopped being an arrangement for me," Lily said, her voice trembling but determined. "I fell in love with you, Gideon. With your kindness, your honor, your strength. With the way you treat me as an equal, the way you make me laugh, the way I feel safe and valued and seen when I am with you. I love you, and if you do not feel the same, that is all right. We can go back to our arrangement." But I had to tell you the truth. Gideon was out of his chair and pulling her to her feet before he consciously decided to move. "You love me," he said, his hands framing her face. "Yes," Lily whispered. "I love you." "Thank God," Gideon breathed, and then he was kissing her, properly kissing her for the first time since their brief wedding kiss months ago. And Lily was kissing him back, her arms coming around his neck, her body pressing against his. The kiss was everything, sweet and fierce and full of months of pent-up longing. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Gideon rested his forehead against hers. "I love you too," he said. "I have been in love with you for weeks, maybe months. I did not say anything because I thought you wanted the arrangement, thought you would feel trapped if I changed the terms. But Lily, you are everything to me. You are my wife in truth, and I want you to stay forever, not because of legal papers or protection, but because I cannot imagine my life without you in it." Lily laughed, the sound bright with joy and relief. "I want to stay forever. I want this to be our home, our life together. Really together." "Then it will be," Gideon said, kissing her again. "Starting tonight, no more separate rooms. You are mine and I am yours in every way that matters." That night their marriage became real in every sense. They came together with tenderness and passion, learning each other, claiming each other, building the intimacy that had been growing between them for months. And when they lay tangled together afterward, Lily's head on Gideon's chest and his arms wrapped securely around her, both felt a completeness they had never known before. "I never thought I could have this," Lily whispered in the darkness. "A real marriage, real love. When I ran from Dallas, I thought I was giving up any chance at this kind of happiness." "You were never giving it up," Gideon said, pressing a kiss to her hair. "You were running toward it. You just did not know it yet." The winter passed in a haze of happiness. Gideon and Lily were inseparable, working together during the day and falling into each other's arms at night. The legal battle with Vernon continued, but it felt distant and unimportant compared to the life they were building together. In March, Catherine Wells sent word that the court had ruled conclusively in Lily's favor. The marriage was deemed valid, Vernon's challenges were dismissed, and Lily's inheritance was released from her uncle's control and placed entirely in her hands. Vernon Blackthorne, facing the prospect of prolonged legal battles he could not win, finally gave up and returned to Dallas in defeat. "It is over," Lily said, reading the letter with tears of relief streaming down her face. "I am really free." "You have been free since the day I found you in that mail car," Gideon said, pulling her close. "But now the law agrees." With full access to her inheritance, Lily insisted on investing heavily in the ranch. They expanded the cattle operation, bought better breeding stock, and hired more permanent hands. They built a new barn and improved the outbuildings. The Circle T Ranch became one of the most prosperous operations in the Panhandle, known for quality cattle and fair dealing. But more than the business success, it was their partnership that flourished. Lily managed the financial side of the ranch with expertise, while Gideon ran the day-to-day operations. They made decisions together, respected each other's opinions, and built something that was truly theirs. In the fall of 1883, Lily discovered she was pregnant. She told Gideon one evening after dinner, watching his face carefully for his reaction. His expression went through several rapid changes: shock, wonder, joy, before he swept her into his arms and spun her around, both of them laughing. "A baby," he said, his voice full of awe. "We are going to have a baby." "Are you happy?" Lily asked, though she could see the answer written all over his face. "Happy does not even begin to cover it," Gideon said. "You have given me everything, Lily, a home, a purpose, love, and now a child. I could not be more blessed." Their son was born the following spring, a healthy boy with his mother's green eyes and his father's strong features. They named him Daniel, after Lily's father, and he became the center of their world. Gideon proved to be a devoted father, carrying Daniel around the ranch on his shoulders, teaching him about horses and cattle even when he was too young to understand. 2 years later, a daughter joined them, a tiny girl with dark curls they named Sarah. The ranch house that had once been austere and empty rang with the sounds of children laughing, of a family truly living. On a warm evening in June of 1887, Gideon and Lily sat on the porch watching Daniel, now 3, and Sarah, 1, play in the yard under Maria's watchful eye. Gideon had his arm around Lily's shoulders and she leaned into him contentedly. "You ever think about that day on the train?" Lily asked. "About how different things could have been?" "Sometimes," Gideon admitted. "I think about what would have happened if I had not followed my instincts, if I had not gone to check the mail car. I think about you running scared and alone, and it makes my chest hurt." "My guardian angel," Lily said softly, turning to kiss him. "That is what you were, what you are." "No angel," Gideon said with a smile. "Just a cowboy who found a woman hiding in a train car and knew he could not walk away." "Whatever you are fleeing, you just found safety," Lily quoted his words from that day. "You did give me safety, but you gave me so much more. You gave me freedom, gave me love, gave me a life I never dreamed possible. You gave me everything." "We gave each other everything," Gideon corrected, pulling her closer. "I was living, but I was not alive, not really, until I found you. You made this ranch a home, made my life have meaning. Every day with you is a gift." They sat in the fading light, watching their children play, and thought about the unlikely journey that had brought them here. A desperate woman fleeing an impossible situation. A cowboy following his instincts to help. A marriage of convenience that became the truest love either had known. It had started with fear and desperation, and evolved into something beautiful and lasting. Daniel came running up to the porch, his face bright with excitement. "Papa, can we ride tomorrow? You promised to teach me to rope." "I did promise that," Gideon said, lifting his son onto his lap. "Tomorrow morning, first thing, you, me, and the horses." "And Mama?" Daniel asked. "If Mama wants to come," Gideon said, looking at Lily with love in his eyes. "I will always come," Lily said, ruffling her son's hair. "We are a family. We do things together." That night, after the children were asleep and the ranch had settled into quiet, Gideon and Lily lay in their bed talking about the future. They discussed expanding the ranch further, perhaps buying adjacent land that was coming up for sale. They talked about their children's education, about whether they should hire a tutor or send them to school in town. They talked about everything and nothing, the easy conversation of two people who knew each other completely. "I want more children," Lily said suddenly. "Is that selfish?" "We are so blessed already, but I want to fill this house with love and laughter. I want our family to keep growing." "It is not selfish," Gideon said, kissing her temple. "I want that too. As many children as you want to give me, as big a family as you want to build. This house, this ranch, it was made for family. Let us fill it up." Over the following years, they did exactly that. Another son arrived in 1889, followed by twin daughters in 1891. The ranch house rang with noise and life. Children running through the halls, playing in the corrals, learning to ride and rope and work alongside their parents. Gideon and Lily aged gracefully together, their love deepening rather than fading with time. They faced challenges, as all ranchers did, droughts and harsh winters and economic downturns. But they faced everything together, partners in every sense, and the Circle T Ranch thrived under their joint leadership. Judge Morrison, who had married them that long ago October day, came to dinner at the ranch one evening in 1895. He sat at their table surrounded by children, watching Gideon and Lily move around each other with the ease of long partnership, and smiled to himself. "You know," he said after dinner, when the children had been sent to bed and the adults sat around the fireplace, "when you two came to me asking to be married, I wondered if I was doing the right thing. It was obvious something unusual was happening, that this was not a typical union. but I saw something in both of you that made me trust my instincts. I am glad I did." "We are glad too," Lily said, reaching for Gideon's hand. "That marriage saved my life in more ways than one. It gave me everything I have now." "It gave us both everything," Gideon corrected, squeezing her hand. "I was half a person before Lily. She made me whole." Judge Morrison raised his glass. "To unlikely beginnings and happy endings, may your love continue to flourish." They drank to that, and as the evening wound down and the judge departed, Gideon and Lily stood together on the porch watching the stars emerge in the vast Texas sky. Behind them, their home was full of life and love, the product of years of hard work and devotion. Before them, years of future stretched out, unknown but unafraid, because they would face it together. "You ever regret it?" Lily asked, leaning her head on Gideon's shoulder. "Taking such a risk on a stranger, binding yourself to someone you did not know?" "Never," Gideon said firmly. "Not for one single moment. You were the best decision I ever made, even when I did not fully understand what I was deciding. My instincts led me to that mail car, led me to you, and I will be grateful for that until the day I die." "I love you," Lily said simply, "more than I have words to express. You gave me safety when I had nowhere to turn, gave me love when I thought I would never have it, gave me a family and a home and a life beyond my wildest dreams. How do I thank you for that?" "You already have," Gideon said, turning to take her in his arms. "Every day, with your love and your presence and the life we have built together. You thank me just by being here, by being mine, by choosing to stay when you could have gone anywhere. That is thanks enough for 100 lifetimes." They kissed under the stars, the same stars that had looked down on a desperate woman hiding in a train car and a cowboy who chose to help rather than walk away. The same stars that had witnessed a hasty marriage become a deep and abiding love. The same stars that would continue to shine over the Circle T Ranch and the family that called it home for generations to come. The story that had begun with fear and flight, with desperate measures and unlikely alliances, had transformed into something beautiful. A testament to the power of compassion, the strength of partnership, and the enduring nature of love freely given and gratefully received. Gideon had offered safety to a stranger, and in doing so, had found his own salvation. Lily had accepted that offer of protection, and in doing so, had discovered that true freedom came not from running away, but from running toward the right person. Their children grew up hearing the story of how their parents met, though the version they told was softened and romanticized. They spoke of love at first sight rather than desperation and convenience, of a cowboy rescuing a maiden rather than the complex reality of two people saving each other. But the core truth remained, that sometimes the most lasting bonds are forged in the most unlikely circumstances, and that real love is built not in grand gestures but in small daily choices to honor, respect, and cherish another person. As the 19th century drew to a close, and the new century dawned, the James family remained a fixture in Tascosa and the surrounding country. The Circle T Ranch passed from Gideon and Lily to their children, and from their children to their grandchildren, each generation adding to the legacy of hard work, integrity, and love that had been its foundation. But always, in the family stories and traditions, was the tale of that October day in 1882, when a cowboy found a woman hiding in a train's mail car and whispered the words that would change both their lives forever. "Whatever you are fleeing, you just found safety." It had been a promise made in that moment, and it had been kept every day since, through all the years that followed, through every challenge and triumph, through the building of a life that neither could have imagined when they first met as strangers brought together by desperation and choice. And if sometimes, on quiet evenings, Gideon and Lily stood together on their porch and thought about the twisting path that had brought them to this place, this life, they did so with gratitude and wonder. For they had learned that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places, and that love, real and lasting love, can grow from the smallest seeds when planted in fertile ground and tended with care. They had found each other in the darkness, two people fleeing different kinds of despair, and together they had built something luminous and enduring. A family, a home, a partnership that would outlast them both and continue in the lives and loves of their descendants. It was, they both agreed, a far better ending than either had dared to hope for on that day, when their paths first crossed in the unlikely setting of a train's mail car. And so they lived and loved, and built their legacy together, proving every day that the promise made in desperation could be kept in joy, and that safety offered to a stranger could blossom into a love that would last forever.